Witnesses describe gunshots and panic at a Jacksonville, Florida video game tournament. Officials say a gunman killed 2 people and himself. The Jacksonville sheriff says authorities believe the gunman was 24-year-old David Katz of Baltimore.
People were being trampled, people were hiding, everybody was screaming in fear. Anything that you expect to see in something like this.
I sustained an injury based by escaping. What happened was like he said, we heard a pop and we just thought a balloon popped, and then we're like, wait, there's no balloons in here. So we basically got out for our lives. He actually made out before me, and shortly after I was behind him, and I'm calling out to him. He actually helped me up because I couldn't walk by then. My ankle was out.
I saw the back of his head. He was actually backing out of where he was shooting from. We heard the first round, and then we saw 2, 3, 4. We heard 2, 3, 4 more rounds, and while those rounds were going off, he was literally backing out of the room.
We were at a coffee shop, and like this guy came running. He was like, "Oh my gosh, there's a shooting!" And then shortly after that, we just started hearing all the gunshots. He wasn't even from here. He was like from Dallas. He was here playing Madden at the Chicago Pizzas, like where everything happened.
Yesterday, Pope Francis declined to confirm or deny claims by the Vatican's retired U.S. ambassador that he briefed the Pope in 2013 about sexual misconduct allegations against disgraced ex-Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. Francis said the 11-page text by Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, which reads as a homophobic manifesto, attacks Francis and speaks for itself, and that he wouldn't comment on it. Francis was asked during an airborne news conference yesterday if Vigano's claims that the two discussed McCarrick in 2013 were true. The Pope was also asked about Vigano's claims that McCarrick was already under sanction at the time, but that Francis rehabilitated him. Francis said he had read Vigano's document and trusted journalists to judge for themselves and said, quote, "I won't say a word about it." The hurry up and wait uncertainty surrounding Canada's return to the NAFTA talks is entering a new week as Ottawa's partners in the trilateral deal push forward with their one-on-one negotiations. For 5 weeks, top officials from both the United States and Mexico have logged many hours of face-to-face talks in Washington on the North American Free Trade Agreement. With signs of progress apparent, the high-level American-Mexican meetings stretched through the weekend. But even with brightening prospects, Ottawa has remained absent from summertime discussions on a continental pact that's deeply important for the Canadian economy. A timeline for Canada's return to the table has yet to be mapped out. The federal government insists it hasn't been frozen out of the talks, and Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland said she's been in regular contact with both her American and Mexican counterparts. Canadian officials have argued the bilateral period has been necessary for the U.S. and Mexico to sort out tough issues such as rules of origin for autos. But trade experts say Canada's omission is, at least in part, a tactic by the White House to divide and conquer as it applies extra pressure on Ottawa to accept what could be a less palatable deal. Senator John McCain is set to be buried next to his best friend from his days at the U.S. Naval Academy and not in Arlington National Cemetery with his father and grandfather. The Arizona Republican remained best friends with Admiral Chuck Larson throughout his life and attended Larson's funeral in 2014 on a leafy hillside in Annapolis, Maryland. On Saturday, as McCain entered his final hours, a marker with his name on it stood at the gravesite next to where Larson is buried. McCain and Larson's friendship began at the Academy, where McCain ranked near the bottom of the class of 1958, and Larson finished near the top. They were also roommates through flight school. The 81-year-old McCain died on Saturday of brain cancer at his Arizona ranch. In Washington, flags flew at half-mast. Canadians stuck in Hawaii amid torrential rains from a tropical storm say, despite an eventful last couple of days seeking shelter, they hope to enjoy the rest of their trip. Lane was barreling towards the islands of Hawaii as a powerful Category 5 hurricane in the middle of last week, but it was downgraded to a tropical storm on Friday, and then it slowed down as it approached land. According to preliminary figures from the U.S. National Weather Service, as it lingered, the storm's outer bands were already over the Big Island, allowing Lane to drop 131 centimeters of rain as of early yesterday. No storm-related deaths have been reported, but authorities have said they plucked families from floodwaters and landslides, closed roads. Forecasters warned that some areas may be uninhabitable for weeks. 21-year-old Marie-Dominique Côté, Alexia Neiman, and Beatrice Lacharité from Sherbrooke, Quebec, say they arrived on Hawaii's Kauai Island on August 20th. What was supposed to be a 5-day stop turned into a hunt for shelter and eventually a waiting game. Yesterday, Côté said strong winds and precipitation were still falling on the small island at the northwest tip of the chain that makes up Hawaii.